This is 7500. It's directed by Patrick Volrath and stars Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who we haven't seen in a little while. It's available on Amazon Prime UK. And it's basically Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays a character called Tobias Ellis. He is a pilot. He's flying from Berlin to Paris when basically a group of terrorists invade the plane. They try and gain access into the cockpit and try and take over the flight. And it is basically a film that is set inside the plane, single location. And it's all about Tobias's fight to remain control of the plane whilst they start to take hostages and things start to get very, very serious. So I watched this. It's 90 minutes. And I could not pause it for a second. I absolutely loved this film to bits. I thought it's incredibly tense. It's gritty. It makes you feel so claustrophobic. It makes you feel like you are trapped in this cockpit with Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character as he tries to regain control of the plane. And I'm not a good flyer. Like, I have a fear of flying, so I was great during this movie. I was like nearly sweating everywhere and kind of nearly about to be sick, basically. And it wasn't even actually the bad bits. It was the bit when they were like taking off. Even that bit,
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I really struggle on a plane. It's always the takeoff for me. It's never anything else. Once I'm up in the air, I'm fine. But it's that sense of realism. I really felt like I was on board this plane. And then the movie takes its time to establish the routine of, getting the passengers on the plane, setting it up. And I think it was the moments before things started to kick off that I really felt gripped by the film. I really felt captivated. You know something's going to happen. There's going to be some sort of incident on the plane, and you're just waiting. And it's so nail-biting, the tension. And I think that's what the film does really, really well. More so, I thought Joseph Gordon-Levitt's performance was not just great. I think for me, I'm looking at possible Oscar territory with him. I thought he was unbelievably terrific in this. The movie weighs a lot on his shoulders. He has to carry the film. I don't think there's a single scene he's not in. And I thought he just did an absolutely terrific job. Just his emotional depth. You really sympathize with what he was going through. I'm not going to spoil it, but there is a scene in particular which I found so distressing, which has a connection to his character. And yeah, he is just fantastic in this. He really, really delivers it. And I think when Oscars come, I don't think this film's going to be nominated, but I think his performance should be. It's really, really great. And yeah, I love this film to bits. It's 90 minutes. It flew by. I couldn't stop it. I didn't want it to stop. I didn't want to pause it. And yeah, it is just really claustrophobic, gritty, really, really tense stuff. And yeah, it's in my top 10 of the year. I loved it.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I loved it too. I think it comes from the Paul Greengrass school of filmmaking. Now, I'm a big fan of Paul Greengrass. I don't talk about him enough. I think he is one of the best filmmakers working today because he has got that sense of realism that which he brings to his films, whether or not that's film based off of a true story, such as United 93, which obviously this has got very much the same themes of United 93, or whether it's something which is more of a genre piece, like the Bourne Identity films. Paul Greengrass always brings a sense of reality to these films, and this reminded me a lot of a Paul Greengrass film. Like you said yourself, it is grounded in reality. It takes that time to go through the kind of mundane procedures of, checklists before taking off. And it puts you squarely in that kind of pilot seat as you're taking off into the air, which, like you, made me feel sick. So I'm glad that you had that same feeling, because I thought maybe it was just me. So the fact that you're kind of a fly on the wall within this cockpit just adds to that tension. It is, again, a pressure cooker of a movie because it builds that tension for the first half especially really, really well, because there are all these different elements. And when the hijacking takes place, it is so realistic, it is so visceral, because it just happens. It just happens out of the blue, and it just left me shook. And then how the film continues to build on that tension. Like you said, there is a personal connection to the lead character. in the main side of the plane, in the passenger's side of the plane, and you're kind of wondering how is he gonna kind of keep the passengers safe, keep this connection safe, and land the plane safely whilst, you know, keeping these terrorists at bay. He's also got a terrorist in the cockpit unconscious. I mean, that is a great concept, which just makes me sweat just talking about the concept itself. I mean, forget nail biting. I was like chewing through my fingers as you know, during this time. My biggest concern about the film going in was, and it's the same with any film like this of this kind, can the director maintain that tension and can he build on it? I would say, as I said, largely yes, the tension is built really nicely through the film, especially that scene you referred to earlier on where he's kind of watching the security footage, and the terrorists bring a hostage to the screen. I think that is real tense stuff. For me, it kind of lost that tension in the final 20 minutes. I will say the final 20 minutes lost me a little bit. I didn't feel as tense. That's nothing against the filmmaker, because I think the filmmaker is in a really tough position, because I don't think he could have ended it any other way. Without it kind of losing that realism. You know, if it had been like this big dramatic kind of landing sequence, it would have then crossed over into the realms of big budget Hollywood, you know, blockbuster, which this film isn't trying to do. It's trying to be anti-blockbuster, if anything. So I can understand the choices that the writer made with that final 20 minutes, but I do have to say, I didn't feel as on the edge of my seat as I did the rest of the film in the last 20 minutes. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, terrific performance. Definitely one of the best performances of the year, because he's so unrecognizable in the film. He does that kind of classic Tom Hanks kind of performance, really. Tom Hanks has got that great gift of disappearing into characters, into like everyman characters, like Sully, for example. And in this, Joseph Gordon-Levitt does that brilliantly. He manages to just transform into this character completely. You don't feel like you're watching an actor on the screen. You feel like you're watching a real person. So I agree, it is one of the best performances of the year. I don't think it's going to get the recognition it deserves at all, which is a real shame. But I hope that people will come across it on Amazon and go, wow, what a hidden gem of a movie.